Welcome back to another episode of STEM and Stilettos. This is your host, Zofia Morales, and today I am here with Julia Kraft. And we are going to discuss how to communicate with authority and confidence. So if you've ever struggled with feeling like people aren't hearing you when you speak up in a meeting, have gotten feedback that we don't feel that executive presence when you talk, you have arrived in the right place. Julia Kraft is the founder of Speak to Inspire Coaching and a sought-after motivational speaker with over a decade of experience as a public speaking coach and group facilitator. She helps individuals and teams, as well as organizations, overcome performance nerves and show up with clarity and confidence in high-stakes communication without relying on scripts or heavy rehearsal. Julia guides her clients to turn their expertise into clear, compelling, and inspiring presentations that resonate and deliver results. Welcome to the show, Julia. I'm so happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Thanks for that great introduction.
Yes. So speaking of great introductions, a lot of times people hear those and are, oh, she walks on water. She was born this way. So tell us a little bit of your backstory. How did you
Sure.
morph into this public speaking coaching phenomena?
Growing up, I was the girl that liked to go to dance classes and theater camps and that kind of thing. And you might assume that I was a really extroverted kid, but it became clear really soon to me in middle school, high school that I was super introverted. But the places like a dance class or an acting club or being in that play was the place that I got to be more free and got to be more expressed. And it felt like this safe container that I could be more out there and expressive. Does that make sense?
Yes, it totally makes sense because I'm one of these people that I'll get comments. I'll say I'm an introvert, and people are like, "What? No, you've got this podcast. You talk to strangers
Yeah.
all the time. You do all." I'm like, "Yeah, that's different." When I'm done with all that, want to go back into my little hole and curl up in the corner with my dog and my book and my husband, and that's that.
Yeah, that's really well said. What I know now after growing up and figuring some things out, as an introvert, I get my energy from that quiet time, from that time in a comfort zone, like you're saying, with your husband. For me, it's my cats. That's my comfort zone. I get so much energy from that. And then being out in the spotlight, even something like this that's over Zoom where I'm by myself in my house, it takes energy. Introverts understand this. We have these
Yes.
batteries, right?
Yes.
They're like ticking down with any kind of visibility or social engagement.
Yeah, exactly. And while I love it while I'm doing it, I don't, none of podcasting gets me down or quote unquote is something I don't like to do. I love doing it, but when I'm done, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, so I went to theater school and studied acting. I was in the world of theater, and yet if I look back, I wasn't very inspired to audition for every play in acting school or go to every party. I really was into the training of actors. I loved all that I was learning about physicality, about the voice, about mindfulness, about really being present. And just the art of being in a scene with people was so interesting to me. I also got into directing later in college, and I really liked being the person watching the actors and
Yes.
guiding them. And so it makes sense now that this is what I do. That I love being in training rooms and supporting other people. I like that big picture view of the art of communication.
Amazing. And you seem to be quite effective at it, which I think
Oh,
a lot of us who've come up through like the sciences and the technical side of things, it feels a little bit like this strange, murky world to us. It's like, I know all of this shit. Everybody knows my qualifications. Why does it matter how I hold myself and how I project when I'm talking about the stuff that I know?
right. I've worked with lots of what I would call more left brain oriented people. I'm out in San Francisco. I'm surrounded by techie people. There's plenty of science oriented people here too.
Yes.
And they're the ones that often seek out public speaking coaching, in part because they are introverted as well. And so that introversion makes it so that you're very comfortable maybe one on one or a small group of people that you relate to that are
Yeah.
also scientists or data people. That's very comfortable and you're just sharing your knowledge. But then when you're in a room of, say, the business-oriented people, the marketers, the CEO, they have a different mindset of what
Yeah.
they're looking for and listening for. And so that's a completely different communication style. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad communicator necessarily, but it means that you've studied a skill set or you've trained in something, which is your science or your data. You've trained in that and you haven't trained in the art of being flexible as a communicator, which is a
Right.
skill in and of itself.
Yeah, and I love that you call it a skill because if it's a skill, you can get better at it.
Definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Nobody comes out of the womb being a perfect public speaker. Even the extroverts, by the way. Extroverts have other things that they need to work on. I don't work with a lot of extroverts. They don't get attracted to me like as much. But when I do work with an extrovert, what I'm often doing is reining them in,
Mm,
helping them to slow themselves down, to have more structure, more organization, to be more aware of how they're coming across because they're just sort of going for no reason, right?
yeah, they're
They're
up
not
there.
being,
Look at me.
yeah, yeah, exactly. They're not like as purposeful. Whereas
Yeah.
as introverts, we might be more self-censored or holding back. And so we
Or
need to
more
work.
thoroughly prepared, right?
Yes,
The
yes,
the
over
extrovert
preparing.
it has
Yeah.
tendency to go, yeah, I'll get up there and wing it.
Right. And then they don't know what to say in a way,
Yeah.
too. They can get stuck or they can just have fluffy communications, whereas introverts can go way too much into the details. My data people, science people, they're sharing every detail when the CEO is just looking for, is there ROI on this?
Yeah, exactly. Don't show me all the individual trees. I just
Yeah.
want the trail through the forest.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have to think of your audience. When it comes to communication, you know how they say with retail that the customer is always right? With public speaking or communication skills, the audience is always right. In that if the audience is getting it, if they're getting what they need in that moment, what they came for, then you're doing a good job. It's not like a black and white thing. It's really about that moment. Are we communicating here?
Right. And I think if you've done any public speaking for any period of time, you very quickly begin to understand the energy that happens when they're with you and when they're not
Yeah.
with you.
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a feeling. It's
Yeah.
not an intellectual thing. And it might not be like obvious in that, oh, yes, everyone's nodding their head at the same time, exactly as I expected. No, it's a feeling. It's a vibe that you get. And part of what I help people to do is to trust their instincts, trust yourself, that just like gut sense of what would be the right thing to say here. How do I want to say it at this time? Not how I prepared to say it. Not how I
Right.
wrote it down in my script, but what feels right in this moment. I would say 99% of the time, that's the right way to say it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not to say that you prepared wrong. I like
Yes.
to show us where we're right, even when it's not fitting. And as an introvert, I know I tend to prepare and hyper prepare. And one of the things that I have taught myself over the years is there are times to just let the really precise techno speak go,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially when you start addressing more diverse groups. It gets you
Yep.
more engagement, it gets you better understanding if you throw all that away and go a lot more colloquial and
Yes.
with much simpler words.
Again, meeting your audience where they're at or making
Yeah,
sure that the communication is for them. It's not about you and all your fancy expertise. It's really
yeah,
for them.
exactly. And I find it helps me to step back from like the knowledge of each of these individual trees.
Yeah.
If I can step back and really attach to the why this whole project exists in the first place.
Yes.
Because it's very easy to get sucked into the weeds and the details. And it's like, yes, we solved this technical challenge. Yes, high fives for that. But no one will celebrate with you until they know why that was important that it got solved.
Yes. Yes. And that's when communication becomes, you could say, sales. Of every communication is sales. And my data people don't like hearing that because they're like, I'm not a salesperson. But really, you're always proving your point and enrolling people in your perspective. That's excellent communication.
Yes. Invite them
And
into your world
yeah.
in a way that feels welcoming to them, not
Mm.
alienating. Yeah.
Mm.
So, what was the thing that kind of pushed you into the public speaking coaching aspect of it?
Sure, I feel like I was a natural coach. Like I said, I was attracted to directing early on, and so I have that coaching eye. But what I did out of college is I figured out really quickly that I didn't want to be in the world of acting. Like it just
Mm.
wouldn't be very satisfying to audition all the time and get rejected all the time.
Oh
And
yeah,
the
the
whole
number
thing. I
of
just was like, this
no's,
is
yeah.
not a lifestyle for me. And so I actually became a yoga teacher full time at because I was really into yoga and it connected a lot with the training I had just done in theater. So being a yoga teacher is a form of facilitation, and it was a great opportunity for me to use all my skills around speaking and communication and clear expression. But it was me as myself. And so it was an opportunity for about 8 years or so that I did that to develop my own voice, to find my authentic voice and some of my own expertise. And it led very naturally into my work as a public speaking coach, and that I started giving talks about a combination of what I had learned in theater school, what I
Mhm.
learned in the world of yoga and mindfulness, and what I started to learn about, okay, people go up and give speeches, and how do you show up more powerfully for that? So I started to come up with my own ideas of how to do that better. It was a matter of the more I talked about it, the more I had a perspective and an opinion, and it evolved pretty naturally. I started working with yoga teachers first, teaching
Mhm.
them about how to make sure that your voice it fills the whole room, that people can hear you, even those basics, or how to make sure you share something clearly enough that everybody knows what to do, and then build your classes because people love coming. So there's that business element to it a little bit too. And then what I discovered is that yoga teachers could care less in some ways about their speaking and just wanted to learn more about yoga. And I
Yeah.
had to focus on what is the business that I want to build? How do I want to have a career? And I think you and I talked about this before. It was a wake-up call as an entrepreneur to learn about marketing and sales. And that has really informed my journey around what I teach with public speaking too. Like we said, communication is sales. So learning not only to be in your body and have a strong voice, but also to communicate in a way that's enrolling. That's
Yeah,
something I learned around that time.
absolutely. What would be an example of enrolling speech versus not enrolling speech? What is the mistake
Yeah,
that you frequently see people make around that?
sure. Let's go in the data science lane because I know
Sure.
that a lot of your listeners are those kind of people. If you have a statistic that you want to share of a piece of data and you just rattle it off like 25% of our blah blah blahs have been doing this and 50% of them have been doing this and 10% of this, and I can see you're already lost. You're like, "Well, what
Yeah.
is this
Oh,
about?"
yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
can see it in your eyes. So if you just start listing off the data, and you probably have a graph behind you on the PowerPoint
Right, a
with
little pie chart.
like
Yeah.
10 listed down and 20 over and like all these numbers. So when it's presented like that, it's not enrolling because our minds start scanning for, well, what's the point?
Is
What am I
there a
supposed to get out
pattern
of this?
here? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So you might as well, as a communicator, speak to the point versus speaking all the numbers. I can read the slide,
Yeah, yeah. The point is our ideal client has been misidentified, and our true user base is this based on the data.
that was really well said.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then to go to the next level with making that a whole presentation, I would have a little automation that highlights the number on the screen, like that circles it or yellows it out. So we focus on one number at a time that leads you to that conclusion.
yeah,
And then it's like, oh, she has support for this claim. It's not just her idea, it really is clearly the data shows this.
yeah. I like that. I like that. So we are up on our first break already. Can you believe?
Okay.
And I like to give a little bit of homework as we go into the break. So, what could our listeners be thinking about around public speaking in their professional life?
What could they be thinking about? They could
Yeah,
be thinking about what they bring when they have a moment in the spotlight, when they have that visibility moment. Are you bringing an idea, like a belief, a perspective, or are you bringing information? I'll just leave it at that, and you and I can continue to talk about what the difference is between those things.
Right, and what it means when you focus on one versus the other. I like that. So grab your pen, grab your piece of paper, spend some time thinking about what you, up to this point, have been delivering when you stand up in front of a group, and hang with us. We'll be right back from the break.
Oh, check it out, the wolf here. Tech is ours and we show no fear. No fear. No fear. No fear.
Thanks for hanging in with us through the break. This is Zofia Morales. I am back with the amazing and wonderful Julia Kraft. Over the break, Julia asked us to spend some time with our pens and paper and think about what it is we bring typically when we go into a presentation. Is it information? Is it an opinion? Is it some amalgam of the two? And as we were on the break, I suspect there's an other at the bottom of this multiple choice quiz that's something like, you can't make me stand up there. So talk to us a little bit about what are those first choices, whether we lead with opinion or we lead with information.
Sure. So a perspective or having an opinion might feel like it could potentially divide the room.
Mm,
And to take a stand on something, it can feel risky, right?
yeah.
It can feel risky for you personally or your reputation at work, or this sense of you could be wrong. Like a lot of data-oriented people, it's hard for them to take a stand because the next experiment could be different. Like, I don't know if it's really true. There's always this sense of,
I
well,
need more data to be able to
yeah,
commit. Yes.
yes, yes. It can feel really risky to take a stand. And that's why you probably lean on the information or the
Yeah.
data and hope that it speaks for itself. But something that I've really learned is that a number on its own means nothing unless you give it meaning. If I say
Yes.
50%, that's a vague one because it's right in the middle. If
Well,
I say
but
seven,
yeah, but is it good or is it bad? Right.
is it good or is it bad, right?
Yeah.
I say the 10, like, okay, 10, is it a lot or is it a little?
Yeah.
It's all context, it's all story. And so the reason you're speaking, the reason that they asked you to share your data is because they want your perspective on it.
Yes, they
They
want
can
the
read a
story that
report.
the numbers are telling
Yeah.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. I had a boss and a mentor relatively early in my career who had asked me for a decision. And I'm like, I'm not ready to give you a decision, was my response to him. He's like, what is in the way of you giving me a decision? Well, we're missing the following areas of data. We are unsure about these three things. And he said, here's the thing. And walk in your office and put a gun to your head, not literally, but figuratively,
Yeah.
and you will have to give me a decision, the best decision you have on the data at hand. You're completely justifying in saying there are these areas of uncertainty, but our best bet is blah. This needs to be
Mm,
what the
mm,
end of that story is. Our best bet is this.
mhm.
I think he did me a real service in
Yeah,
forcing
well
moment.
said.
Yeah,
Yeah, because that is the entrepreneurial mindset. I come from an entrepreneurial background. My dad's an entrepreneur, and so it's in my blood of being willing to take risks and not have certainty or to be
yeah.
certain in the unknown. It's
Yeah, because
and
you
that,
never have all the
yeah.
data. That's the way life is. You will never have all the data to have that 100% confidence. So you have to go with what has the best support in this moment.
Yes, and the CEOs or the leaders are living more in that world, whereas if you're the person that's in the weeds with things, you might not have to approach things like that as much, but you got to know that the leaders are in that. Like they have
Yeah.
to make decisions even though they can't know everything.
Yeah, exactly. And they do it on a regular basis because
Yeah.
we would get decisions that would come down from on high. And it's like, don't they understand that these two objectives that they've given us are mutually exclusive? It's like, no. And this is the decision. And we're just going to have to make it work because, in the absence of knowledge, this is what they've decided. And they've decided to move forward in the absence of knowledge. So we're going to make this work the best that we can.
Right. And so any moment that you as the detail-oriented person have to speak about where you think things should go, taking a bold perspective or having an opinion is really valuable because you actually have the data in front of you. You have a lot
Yeah.
of information.
Exactly. And I think one of the things that also gets missed, because how many people have sat in a business meeting and your eyes are just ready to roll back in your head? It's like, how much longer is this going to drag on? Having an opinion changes that dynamic
Hmm.
a lot. Your
Hmm.
meetings will get a lot more interesting
And shorter, for
and
sure.
shorter. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times meetings are long because there's poor facilitation of a meeting, in that there isn't a strong or clear leader in the room who's designating what the time is for and how people should contribute. And for introverts, that's extra hard, by the way. We're
Right.
always looking for, is it my time to speak? Do I have permission? Am I interrupting? Like that's just our nature. We like to have a clear delineated space. Whereas extroverts don't need that. They can talk over everybody. They can be talking at the same time. They don't care. They're still communicating. I
Yeah.
don't get it.
But did you hear anything I just said? No.
Yeah, that's not the point, actually. As for extroverts, that's not really the point of communication. It's just to have energy flowing. Whereas introverts, we want things to be meaningful. We want to make sure that a message is delivered, and we're only going to say it if it really matters, right?
Yeah.
So if a meeting is facilitated, the extroverts are reined in and the introverts are brought forward. And so that's something that I try to teach my leaders that I work with, or who have the managers that are facilitating meetings. Like the better you facilitate, everyone will be able to contribute. And there's like a lowering of tension or stress in the room in general.
Yeah, I like that. And bonus, the meeting gets to the point and gets finished faster.
Always good. Yeah.
So we talked about information versus opinion, and I'm of the opinion you need both, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
if you just stand up with an opinion, you will get your legs shot out from under you.
Hmm.
But what about people who went to that last option? You can't make me stand up there. There's no way in heck. How do
Mm.
people start to get past that? Because I think at a certain point, for an ambitious person, that can become quite limiting. And even if you're not ambitious, even if you're just looking to have a better environment to be working in exactly where you are as a solo producer, how do
Yeah.
you get past that anxiety about stepping out and having the conversation or speaking to the group of people?
Hmm. What we're talking about, just to put a label on it, is performance anxiety, right? So there's lots of different kinds of anxiety that you can have, social anxiety, just generalized anxiety. But what we're specifically talking about is performance anxiety. And performance anxiety is about a moment in time. So it's very much about time when there's pressure. So
Hmm.
there's going to be a lead up to the moment, there's going to be the moment itself, and then there's going to be the after the moment. This could be a test that you're taking, and you can have performance anxiety about that. It could be a date that you're going on. Anything where there's this moment of performing.
Yeah, there's a lot hanging on how I present myself right now.
Right. So specifically performance anxiety in terms of speaking communication moments at work. What goes into that is we have to look at each phase, and especially the before the moment phase is the most important to change the whole pattern, if that
Mm,
makes sense. If you're
okay.
trying to change your experience of speaking while you're there in front of the audience, that's a very hard thing to do.
Yeah, the horses left the barn at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And afterwards, maybe you can think about it a little differently that would set you up better for the next time. But again, that brings us back to the before. The
Right.
before is really where you can have the most change on your experience during, and therefore build a new positive history as you think about it afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I accidentally built my own positive history out of
Yeah.
a very screwed up childhood. But what about for people who have not had a screwed up childhood where it was safer to be in front of a group of people than it was to be in a group of people?
Oh, interesting. We all have our screwed up childhoods. Too. I hear about people's childhoods a lot because performance anxiety comes from something that happened before.
Right.
Anxiety in general, but especially performance anxiety, because it's this sense of Well, last time I did this, or the last time I took a risk to express myself, this happened and this is how I felt, and this is the meaning I made about it. So that's probably going to happen again. So I want to avoid doing this.
Mm,
So it's a protection, like anticipation
yeah,
protection thing.
exactly.
So I talk a lot about the past with people, that what I would call public speaking PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
What was the moment
Sure.
that you had often in childhood that created this belief in you that, oh, I'm not good at being in the spotlight. Not good things don't happen when I speak up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's safer to be in the background. What's that belief for you? Because it's still running the show if you're experiencing performance anxiety. It's very common for professionals to get through their childhood, as we all do, get into college and get good at something. You get
Yeah.
into a skill, maybe a science that you're really into, and you get a career where you're doing the work. And then by the time you're in, say, your 30s, you get promoted to a manager or leadership kind of position. And that's when that old thing that you haven't had to deal with in a good 10 years,
Is now front and center.
now front and center, and it's holding you back. So that's a really common thing. And I just want to make that connection because it's a through line in our lives that's worth looking at.
Right. And it's not a broken thing. The
Oh,
other
yeah.
thing to put out there, this does not make you broken. It's just part of your history, it's part of your fabric, and it was actually protective for you for a long
Yes.
time. And
Yes.
so I think it's important to make friends with that because a lot of times we will set up this antagonistic sort of situation with it. It's like
Oh,
high
yeah.
anxiety. And
Yeah.
these things I find resolve better if you can see them as they truly are, not just the ways in which they're detracting to you right now.
Absolutely. To go deep here, because I do
Yeah.
go deep with it's very personal. Even though we're talking about professional communication,
Yes.
performance anxiety is very personal. And so it goes into some of your most vulnerable and shame-filled feelings.
Yeah.
So, yes, a lot of people, most people that experience performance anxiety are very self-critical and are beating themselves up for being anxious or being
Yes.
self-critical. And it's this self-fulfilling prophecy, self-destructive kind of loop that circles back on itself. And again, that's why the before is so important. You need to set yourself up for success, which is a process of nurturing, supporting, building yourself up versus breaking yourself down.
So once we've figured out the origin story behind our anxiety around performing, how do we start to pick that apart?
Sure, there's going to be a cascade of symptoms that you experience leading up to a performance moment.
Sure.
And those are related to the thoughts that you have. So as you unpack those, you can be more aware of it. But also, I think the most important thing is to do something. Like, I'm not a therapist, I'm a
Mm.
coach. I'm
Right.
here to help you take different actions that are going to get you different results. So
Right.
let's say the week before you have a presentation, you start to have sleepless nights,
Yeah.
or you start to have those palpitations that you've had in the past.
Hmm.
Okay, that's that very vulnerable inner, sometimes young part of you that's starting to freak out. And you could just beat yourself up about it and say, "Shut up, I don't want to feel you," and
What's wrong
distract
with you?
yourself.
You're a completely competent person. Why are you melting
You
down like
try to
this?
talk
Yeah,
yourself out of it. Yeah,
exactly.
and just try to distract yourself, and time will pass, and then you're going to show up for that performance moment, and the anxiety is going to hit in the same old way.
Yeah.
Or in that moment where you have heart palpitations or you can't sleep a week before the presentation, you could start to implement some nervous system regulation practices
Hmm. For
that
example,
calm yourself in the moment. And it's always an in the moment thing. For example, like to go totally basic and simple things that people probably have heard of before, is you take a deep breath. It's so simple, but it can be utterly profound to
right.
approach your own anxiety differently.
Let's
Okay, anxiety,
let's
I see you.
let's talk about the deep breath. What does the deep
Yeah,
breath sound like? Because my
yeah.
husband will do this thing. He's like, there you go. I'm like, that's not quite what I had in mind.
I think the key is take a deep breath that feels good to you. That's the key, the feeling. A lot of times with anxiety, you want to jump out and get mental about it, like you were talking yourself out of trying to talk yourself out of
Yeah.
anxiety. Anxiety is emotion, it's a feeling, and it's in your body.
Mm.
Nervous system dysregulation is a very primal physical thing. My primal body, my primal nervous system feels unsafe right now.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
the only way to regulate your nervous system is to bring your physiology back to a place of safety. So, if you take a
Yeah.
breath, right?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe you're taking in more oxygen in a way, but do you feel better?
Yeah, you're sending a different signal to your system when you take in that sort of a breath. We're
Yeah.
up on our second break already. So
Yeah,
I want
good.
to dig into this a whole lot deeper when we come back. And I think I'm going to suggest somehow, Mark, which is take your pen, take your piece of paper, and write down the things that pop up for you as you're preparing to go into an important presentation. What is it? Do you have the dream about standing up in front of the school and you're naked? What is the thing that comes up for you? Is it anxiety? Is it anxiety attacks? Is it just this repeating doom scenario? There are all kinds of things that show up for people. But make your personal list. What is it for you? How does it show up? And hang with us. We'll be right back from the break and then we'll discuss that some more.
Oh, check the loud, the wolf here. Tech is ours and we show no fear. No fear. No fear. No fear.
Thanks for hanging in with us through the break. This is Zofia Morales. I am back with the amazing and wonderful Julia Kraft. And before the break, we asked you to make a list of what are the things that pop up for you in front of a big performance, whether it's a big presentation or a sales talk, whatever it is. So, Julia, when we look at our list here, what should we do with it now that we have it scraped in a pile?
Well, send some compassion to that version of you, that moment that you've had those experiences. Whew, those were hard, right? Those were
Yeah.
stressful. And think about if you had a child, like a 5-year-old, that came up to you and said, I'm experiencing all these things. What would you be inspired naturally to do? What would you be inspired if a 5-year-old came up to you and said, my heart is racing and I can't breathe really deeply and I can't rest, I can't sleep? What would you do?
Mm, yeah. I would probably give them a hug.
Mhm.
Hmm. And advise them to have a nice deep breath. You're
Mhm.
safe. I would
Mhm.
remind them you're safe. Have a nice deep
Mhm.
breath. And then I would invite them to share why these fears are important to them. Why do they feel like these fears are things that will happen?
Mhm. Sounds very
Yeah.
compassionate to me. And I love that I could tell you didn't say it, but you would get down to their level, right? You would look
Yes.
them in the eye and there would be physical touch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something that you can give yourself. You come down to your own level of where you're at instead of expecting yourself to be somewhere else,
Right.
right?
You're not this Fortune 100 executive right now. You're a scared 5-year-old. Yes.
Exactly. And you might give yourself a hug or be with yourself, be present with your body, or you might ask someone in your life for a hug that's
Yeah.
really nurturing. And then you talk to yourself in a way that brings the fear down. And we all actually already know how to do that. We know how to relate to someone who's afraid. We have natural compassion or empathy that is accessible to us all the time. It's just that we very often, very rarely turn that to ourselves.
Well, and I've found in actual practice that can be a little challenging the first few times you try to do it because it feels a little awkward, but it's worth persisting.
It's worth
It
persisting.
is
Yeah.
definitely worth persisting.
Yeah. And I find that over time, it's like the 5-year-old starts to grow up, you could say, gets stronger, has more of a sense of self, doesn't need quite so much support.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a one and done thing, it's a process. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Love that. What is the biggest misconception that people have about nerves versus confidence? Because we look at them as like two separate things a lot of times.
Yep, the most common misconception would be that the best speakers or the most confident looking speakers aren't
Mm,
nervous.
okay.
Again, like you said, like that they're two separate things, they're not. Everyone gets nervous or has butterflies or has heightened energy around important communication moments. It's simply a matter of does it hold you back or do you have a way of riding the wave?
And I've heard from like actors and comedians and this sort of thing that their worst performances are the ones where they don't go in amped up.
Oh, amped up? What do you mean by amped?
Nervous, or they've got a little bit of stage fright happening before they actually step onto the stage.
Yeah, amped up I want to be careful with because there's a difference between that whole, you mentioned it to me before, that like masculine sense of, oh, I'm gonna pump myself up, ooh, ooh,
Yeah.
ooh, ooh, you know?
Well, and there are people who do that. Tony Robbins springs to mind, but that's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
the only way. Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily change nerves. It can override things and put you into adrenaline mode. And adrenaline mode might work for a short term, but isn't a long-term solution, especially for more introverted people. We're not made
Right.
to handle the same amount of adrenaline. We don't relate to that the same. Like literally, our hormonal systems are built differently in terms of stimulation. We get
Yeah.
overstimulated more easily.
And let's take
Yeah.
this back to men and women. Is this like a gender divide sort of a thing, or is this more of an introvert extrovert
You know,
designation?
there could be a bit of a gender divide, just that, of course, I'm not a doctor or anything, but women, I do think, have a lower threshold for handling cortisol and adrenaline, whereas men handle adrenaline in a different way, just physiologically. And of course, then there's individual differences entirely.
Right.
Everyone's individual. However, women get burnt out faster from running on adrenaline.
Mm.
In essence, women have a 28 to 30-day cycle of energy, whereas men have a 24-hour cycle of
Cycle of
energy.
energy. Yeah.
Yeah. Like physiologically, that's what we're built for. Hormonally, that's what we're built for. And that defines our relationship to health as well as our relationship to stress. So the way a woman might handle stress or her body might respond to stress one day of the month could be very different than another day of the month. And you might not even know what's like going on until it's happening and you feel depleted really
Mm.
quickly, or you feel overstimulated all of a sudden, or you have that crash afterwards. So
Right.
handling our energy system, I think, is much more nuanced for women. And overall, adrenaline is not the best strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Talking about differences between women and men, are there any suggestions that you would have to women who are looking to step out and be perceived as more confident,
Mhm.
commanding, that sort of thing?
I wonder what women have as their examples, you could say, or who they want to emulate. And a
Mm,
lot of times, what I hear when I ask women that question is that they come up with male leaders that they want to emulate. And that's fine. There's a lot of amazing male leader examples out there, or speakers. But ask yourself, what are the qualities in that speaker that I want to embody or emulate? And also ask, is that a quality that's authentic or natural to me? So
mm,
if, for example, Tony Robbins that you brought up, if there's a quality in him of exuberant energy, just how much big, like huge energy that he has, is that a quality that's authentic to you? And if you're an introverted woman
not to me.
that identifies as somewhat shy or quiet, you might love his energy and you can appreciate it. But again, who is someone that you could emulate? Like really that would be authentic for you to
Yeah.
like I admire that person because I think I could aspire to be like them.
Yeah. See, I'm more of like a Lucinda Ardern or an Oprah kind of
Yeah.
person, not a Tony Robbins, definitely.
Yeah. I think Oprah's a great example of an introverted woman in the public eye. Just in how she, like, sort of like you, she's set up her whole business to interview other people,
Yeah,
right? That's how she's made her name for herself is not being in the spotlight, sort of like putting the spotlight on other people. She's a
exactly.
great connector, and she has this way of bouncing energy off of herself onto others. I don't know if you've ever seen her give a keynote speech, any of her keynotes that she's done.
Yeah, no, I've mostly seen like Super Soul Sunday, those sorts of
Yeah. Yeah, the
Oprah's
interview kind of
masterclass
thing.
kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I've watched a few of her keynote speeches, and she just has this quiet confidence about her. She's not trying to be fancy or big or make you laugh, even. It's just simple. And I really appreciate that about her. She's a good example of a woman who's introverted that just delivers a really simple and powerful message. She's a great example. So back to your question of what should women do if they want to step into their leadership more, I think what we're exploring here is how do you align with your authentic leadership presence instead of thinking that you have to be something that you're not.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to become Steve Jobs.
And Steve Jobs is a great example of an
Bird
introverted
in the
leader, by the
spotlight.
way.
Yes.
He had public speaking coaches early on. If you watch some of like his earliest videos, it's painful.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
Some
my
of them
gosh.
were really bad.
And then you can see him progressed so clearly, like each of those launches over the years, all of a sudden, he's a really embodied speaker. He's grounded. He's using his body to express. He has like really clear, concise phrases that make an impact. But all of his presentations are short. He like delivers the message and he gets out of
Out of
there.
there, which I think is a message to take home sometimes, because a lot of times when you're invited to present something, you feel like there's a certain amount of time you have to fill. And if you can release the idea that there's a certain amount of time you must fill and distill it down to the message that needs to be delivered, I think you become more effective.
Yes, back to that point we were making at the beginning of what's your opinion or your perspective?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's the message that you are delivering? Because when someone thinks back to seeing you speak, whether it was for 2 minutes or an hour or the whole day, whenever, when they think back to seeing you speak, they're going to remember two things. They're going to remember what it was vaguely about. If you watch a TED Talk, you might not remember the title of the TED Talk or the statistics that they shared or the details of the story that they shared. You're going to remember that TED Talk was about X.
Mhm.
Like the one I often talk about, Amy Cuddy's TED Talk is about power poses,
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
right?
She,
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about
I
now
know
because
exactly what it
everybody.
is. I've seen her TED Talk, but I'm terrible sometimes with
Right.
names.
No, but that's how the human mind works is
Yeah.
we don't remember all the details. We remember what it was about. Oh, it's about putting your body in a position, and that gives you confidence
Yeah.
for job interviews.
Yes, putting your feet apart, throwing your shoulders back and your arms on your
Right.
hips, and
Yes, you have
then
that image of her in
then do
this the
your
pose.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So again, you have this memory of what it was about, which again is
Yeah.
the message.
And I think that's one of the reasons TED Talks has caught on and remained
Mhm.
valuable is they're very, very insistent on the message. Deliver
The
the
idea worth
message
sharing.
and get out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you remember two things when you see someone speak, what it was about, which is just the message. You don't remember
Yeah.
any of the details. And you remember if you liked the person or not.
Yeah.
If you're leaning in, like, ooh, yeah, that was cool. They were good.
Yeah.
Or, that was whatever. Yeah.
I don't
Like
know.
really, we
Yeah.
just have a feeling about them. So what it was about and a feeling. And all you need to prepare when you do a presentation is what's your message? And what feeling do you want to leave them with?
Yeah,
That's it.
exactly. Now, the message, I think, in some ways is easier, though, than the feeling you want to leave them with, because it's, I think, easy to have a gap between what you think you're delivering as an experience and what you are actually delivering as an emotional experience.
Yeah, I mean, this is can be complex in a way. A lot of my work with clients one-on-one is feedback. I notice that you're doing this with your hand. It's impacting me this way. Is that how you want to come across? That feedback loop and getting some objective reflection is a really important part of growth and like mastering nonverbal communication. At the same time, what we're always looking for, what I'm always looking for, is to remove the static from how people are showing up so that we get their unadulterated presence.
Ah, yes.
They're just authentic presence because you just speak. Your body, like literally just being there, speaks a lot. Like it says so much. You don't have
Well,
to do anything.
exactly. And it will tell the world about what your emotional and mental condition is.
Yeah, like our bodies
Yeah.
speak so much. We get information, and this is nonverbal communication. We get information from watching someone through their physicality, so what we can see of them, and through what we can hear, the quality of their voice. And that adds up to about 93% of the information we're receiving from watching a speaker. And then what's that, like 7% is the actual words. I mean, it's very, very small, that the information. So we're getting so much from the body and from the sound of the voice.
I love that. So we are up to the end of the show here, practically speaking, but I know you brought something along with you for the listeners. What do you have for them today?
Yeah, I think a great next step from here, if you are loving what we've talked about, if it's been super helpful to reflect on introversion and the difference between men and women and performance anxiety and how to speak as a data-oriented science person, if this has been helpful, a great next step would be my three-step training on how to get rid of speaking nerves. Now, when I say speaking nerves, I'm not talking about you're having crazy panic attacks, but speaking nerves are really something that we all deal with. And I talk about the three steps to start to build your confidence, your calm in the spotlight while being more authentic, more yourself, and showing up more as a leader. As a quick overview, we start with nerves, working on the nervous system. We talk about improvisation versus scripting, so how to relate to
Mhm.
content. And then we get into nonverbal communication, which we touched on here at the end. So the training goes much deeper into those three things and gives you concrete tools to start applying right away in your next meeting or presentation.
Fabulous. And you can find the link to that down in the show notes. And if you'd like to partake in that, or if you would like to reach out and talk to Julia Kraft, her information, her website is down there as well. So you can reach out to her through that. Thank you so much for joining us here today, Julia.
My pleasure. It was a great conversation.
I really enjoyed it. And thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in with us today. I know you have plenty of ways you could spend the last 48 minutes, and I try to make this as useful and valuable as I can. I would love to hear from you, whether it's in the comments or drop a quick note to me at Zofia at steminstilettos.com. I love to hear about what you loved, what you didn't love, who you'd like to see me talk to, other topics you'd like to see me take on. And until next week, go out, be bold, be beautiful, and be authentically you.